Hello and welcome back to Core Finance. I'm Matt Brown, coming to you live from London. I'm joined today down the line by Clive Lambert, who is a director at FuturesTechs, and we're going to be looking at a few charts today and focusing on Fibonacci levels. How are you today, Clive?
Very good, thanks, Matt. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, starting off, let's have a look at three charts you've brought along today. Starting off with the DAX, the Widowmaker. Just talk us through this chart, where we go from here.
It's been reasonably well behaved, actually, of late. I hear you. I hear what you're saying about the Widowmaker. It can do that to you. But what we've actually seen here is a rally. You know, we rallied from the lows in late August up to mid-September when we hit a level on the futures at 12,534, which was a 61.8% retracement of the sell-off we saw through the summer. Now, the DAX kind of loves a 61.8% retracement and got to this level and stalled. And then last week we actually saw a move above here. And what we've been doing since, which is what's interesting me, is holding that 12,534 level every time we dip down to it. It's held for 3 days in a row now, including yesterday morning when I got long, but actually unfortunately covered those a little bit too early because we're seeing some decent gains actually as we speak today. And so that's a bullish development and suggests we can go to 12,700 now, maybe even back to those highs of 12,950 that we saw in June.
Okay, so go along the DAX. Where would you put a stop and limit on this if you're that way inclined?
Yeah, well, if you're that way inclined, you want to try and buy a dip to 12,635 today, and you could put a stop below this morning's low on that trade. Keep it if you want to keep it tight, or you can look to buy a little bit lower down and use that 12,534 level as your reference for a stop.
Understood. Fantastic. Moving on, we're looking at fairly similar Euro Stoxx 50 as well on the fib.
Yeah, it's a similar chart, but it's not with respect to the 61.8 level because on this chart, the same move from from June down to September. That move we saw. The sell-off was actually in May. May was the high in this one, and then late August was the low, and the 61.8 retrace of that move is 35.36, and that's been capping upside in this one. So that's telling the other story. That's saying that we're weighed down by the Fibonacci level there. Although actually that was going to be the essence of what I was going to say to you this morning. And between sending you my charts and talking to you now, we're actually giving that level a good old going over. So if we can establish above 35.36, then that comes into line with the DAX chart and says there's upsides to come, 35.85 and 36.45 being the targets. If we can, if this is the real deal, this move. So where we close tonight in relation to 35.36 on EURUSD is really important, and this is an important index. A lot of the futures, it's a very actively traded market amongst the futures community, and well watched index, if you like.
Understood. Well, one to keep an eye out on over the coming days. And finally, the S&P futures. Breaking new highs here. What's the chart telling us?
It is, but what the chart that I've sent to you today that I want to discuss is the monthly chart that shows the whole move from that 666 low in 2009 all the way up to these highs where we are now, and there's some really nice symmetry on this chart with respect to from a Fibonacci point of view, and all of this comes together to say that 25.15, 25.20, 25.30 is a big zone of resistance. We're coming into it now. Yes, we're at all-time highs, so you sort of, arguably there is no resistance, but you can use Fibonacci to come up with projections and targets and things like that. And this one is screaming at me at the moment that we are nudging up to a really big area here, and there's various reasons, and it's just but the symmetry of the chart, and this quite often happens with Fibonacci, is really quite beautiful in this one, especially be if we did actually top out at 25.20. I'm not a massive fan of trying to call tops and bottoms in markets. It's something I'm generally more of a trend follower.
Understood.
In fashion, and I'm a trend follower in fashion about 10 years too late usually, most people say. But no, where the markets are concerned, try and stick with the trends when they're clearly up in this one, and the dips keep getting bought. But this chart is one of those times where it's very compelling and says to me, we are at a massive area, big important resistance now. So that's something I want to keep an eye on and not rule out, and just have in the back of my mind, sort of thing.
Super. 3 charts today, 3 potential trades. What would be your top pick if you had to make one?
Buying dips in the DAX, because that is the one that has been behaving the best with respect to its Fibonacci levels.
Super.
We discussed that, where we got 613 and 540 as the key levels for that sort of trade.
Brilliant. Well, Clive Lambert, lots to think about, but lots of opportunity as always. Clive Lambert, Director of FuturesTechs, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Matt. Cheers.